Mr. Paul Watson.
Hi,
Welcome,
Paul. How are you?
Thanks.
Yeah, great. And thank you so much for coming on and doing this little intro to the interview we did with Peter. And we're really excited by the fact that you have agreed to come on and do a more in-depth interview in the very near future. So we'll certainly look forward to that. With regards to Peter, obviously, you've worked with him for many years and in very close proximity in some very stressful situations. What can you tell us about his character and how he is?
Well, Peter's been with Sea Shepherd since he was 18 years old, so it's pretty much all his adult life. And he's been probably our most committed and courageous captain out there on the high seas, and has done remarkable work, especially his organizing and leading of the anti-poaching campaigns in African waters.
Yeah, that some of the stories that, first of all, Peter told, but obviously what we read in the media, and he's quite a special character. And for anyone that hasn't read the book Chasing Thunder, I know one of our guests, Polly, is a big fan and put me into that book some time ago. It's a must read for anybody, particularly divers and people interested in Sea Shepherd and the conservation work they do.
Yeah, it's incredible. But the Chasing the Thunder, historically, it's the longest pursuit of a poacher in maritime history. So Peter will certainly be in the history books for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he did tell us he started from sort of being a oily rag in the engine room, and now he's one of the directors of campaigns. I mean, that's a hell of a story to tell, isn't it?
Well, yeah. Well, in Sea Shepherd, we try to we're interested in people who are really passionate about this cause, and they don't really have to have much experience when they join, and but really passionate people rise up through the ranks really fast.
Yeah, and Pete is definitely one of those.
And then he went on and got his certification for being a master mariner. Did the schooling for that, and so he's a professional sailor in every sense.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that, Paul. That's really interesting. That interview's coming up with Peter. We've got some questions for you. We've got one each from myself and Craig, but we've also got some questions from a couple of guests. Simon Bell from Simply Diving in the Costa del Sol. So we'll bring Simon in. Hello, Simon.
Hello there, Jim. How are you doing? Hello, everybody.
Hi, Simon.
And we've got Polly Wake from Crystal Sea Scuba in Norwich. Hello, Polly.
Hello. Hi. Hi, everybody.
Hi. How are we all doing?
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Super.
Excellent. Okay, so like we say, we've got a few questions. I think Craig's going to kick us off. So, Craig, would you like to give your question to Paul?
Yes. So, Paul, you were obviously one of the co-founders of Greenpeace, and that's all very well documented. My question is, when you started Sea Shepherd in 1977, did you have any concept of how big this thing would grow into? Or at that time, was it just a question of being a bit frustrated and wanting to do something that gave you the opportunity to take your own action?
Well, I never gave much thought to it at the time. I learned a long time ago that, you concentrate what you're doing on the present, and that will define what the future will be. So I really didn't give any thought to the future. But I had an idea in my mind that what I wanted, and that was not for an organization, but to develop a movement. And I think that's what we've achieved.
Yeah, you certainly have. I couldn't agree with you more. Thank you. Polly, if you'd like to put your question to Paul.
Great. Thank you. Hello, Paul. So we've all seen the hairy and scary moments that you've experienced on board your ships, on Whale Wars and on the Sharkwater film, which I loved. And we know how serious it can be. But have there been any funny moments or humorous situations that you can recall finding yourself in or experiencing while on board?
Well, we have a lot of humorous moments because when you're on ships for months at a time, there's a lot of practical jokes being done. I think probably one of the funniest one we ever did was when we had the Sea Shepherd 2. There was a space between the hull and the cabins in the lower deck, and when new crew members would get in there, about 2 o'clock in the morning, we would get behind the walls with chains, and say things like "help me," and develop this whole haunted ship sort of thing, and every crew member went through that whole.
Brilliant.
How cruel. Thank you, Polly, for that. Great question. Simon,
brilliant question. Simon.
Yeah, hello, Paul. My question is something like along the lines of, well, it seems that sometimes Sea Shepherd is kind of alone out there on the high seas, fighting the good fight, and there doesn't seem to be really any other organizations such as Sea Shepherd doing this great work. And I wonder if you think that us as scuba divers, after all, we're in touch with the ocean and we call ourselves ocean ambassadors. Do you think that us as scuba divers could do more to not just support Sea Shepherd, but do more to promote conservation of the ocean and combat pollution and stuff like that?
Well, I've always said that the three groups that are ambassadors for the ocean are divers, surfers, and sailors. And divers have been very active. We have divers with Sea Shepherd, but there's been divers independently all over the world who have been doing things like removing ghost nets and doing surveys of the conditions on in areas and that. So I think that there is a very active movement of divers around the world that are involved in these issues. And I know it's a tremendous contribution for all of those divers who are involved in removing ghost nets and all over the world. It's right now we're removing nets in Egypt, and I know that in the UK that there's an ongoing campaign to remove nets from UK waters.
Yeah, Craig was actually going to be doing his ghost net course, weren't you, in September, but that's been called off because of the virus.
No, actually, earlier this year we was doing the GhostNet course with GhostNet UK, and yeah, as you say, that got called off, and I'm looking forward to doing that later in the year. But Rich Walker, who you may know, Paul, he's actually coming on next week on a little bit of promotion on our podcast, just to talk about ghost nets and the future and what divers can do to help there in reporting ghost nets that they see when they're diving. Jim, you've got a question for Paul too.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, it's quite a simple question, really. It's just obviously when we get back to normal, whatever normal may be, sometime in the near future, and we've got a bit more freedom. What's next for Paul Watson?
Well, we have campaigns all over the world right now, patrolling the coast of Africa, trying to protect or keep the vaquita from going extinct in the Sea of Cortez. We'll be doing campaigns to protect the marine reserves in Mapello Island around Colombia, Cocos Island around Costa Rica, and we've had an ongoing campaign to protect the Galapagos Marine Reserve for the last 20 years and be expanding those programs to protect marine reserves. What we've found is that that's really workable is the partnerships that we're creating with governments around the world. We provide the resources and the people, they provide us with the authority to intervene. And that's resulted in the arrest of 52 poaching vessels in Africa. It's resulted in the confiscation of over 1,000 illegal nets in the Sea of Cortez. And that really gives us a boost, because once you're in national waters, you're always sort of hampered by the fact that, you don't really have a lot of authority there. Outside in international waters, we have more leeway. But we've been able to make a lot of inroads in territorial waters through these partnerships. And I think we've got over 24 countries that we're partnered with now.
Yeah, I think we touched on it, didn't we, with Peter coming up. We touched on the Liberian government that offered you or gave you the military honor for getting rid of all the poaching vessels.
Yeah, and also our partnership with Mexico has been very, very effective in dealing with the poachers in the Sea of Cortez. So we're working in partnership with the various Mexican departments, including the Mexican Navy.
I'd imagine it's really a never-ending battle that you face, really, isn't it?
Unfortunately, yes, and it's going to get worse. I mean, the ocean's under incredible assault from all, everything from overfishing to plans to go and harvest plankton down in the Southern Ocean, to pollution, to acidification, to climate. So many factors that are threatening the ocean. And the one message that I constantly try to get across is that if the ocean dies, we all die. Our entire survival is dependent upon a healthy ocean. And every time we diminish an ecosystem, we diminish ourselves.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Paul,
absolutely.
does it get perhaps a little bit disheartening after all of these years of doing what you do? And as you just said, it can get worse. It possibly will. Do you feel that the never-ending circle that you can't ever loop means that, you know, it's so frustrating that you know, after all these years, you're still having to do it? I mean, I guess that you would feel if you had nothing to do, you've won.
No, I learned a very valuable lesson way back in 1973. I was a medic for the American Indian movement during the occupation of Wounded Knee in South Dakota. And we were surrounded by about 3,000 federal troops that were shooting at us, about 20,000 rounds a night. They wounded 46, killed 2. I went to Russell Means, who was the leader of the American Indian movement. I said, look, the odds are against us. We have no hope of winning here. Why are we here? And he told me something that stayed with me for the rest of my life. He said, well, we're not concerned about the odds against us, and we're not concerned about winning or losing. We're here because this is the right place to be, the right time to do it, and the right thing to do. So you work in the present to find the future.
Absolutely.
Don't worry about the future. I mean, it will be what the future will be. All you can do is act in the present.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we can't wait to get a more in-depth interview with you coming up, Paul. We really appreciate you coming on. We're going to turn over to Peter shortly, but for all of us, I think we'd all like to say a very big thank you. Great to meet you, and we look forward to seeing you again in a couple of weeks' time.
Okay, thank you. Nice
Yeah.
talking.
Thank you very much, Paul. Thank you. See you soon.
Okay, bye.